How many of you are familiar with data center services? All right. Now, when you say that, do you guys sell cloud or other services, or just co-location? Okay. Well, that's great, because Volico is more than a data center. We provide a lot of services, and if you look across the bottom, co-location is one of our services, but we're more than that. We provide dedicated servers, and we have customers all over the globe, cloud hosting, which we're going to talk about today, enterprise hosting, managed hosting, even business continuity disaster recovery. In our data center, we have suites and seats. So if you have a customer, a bank that's looking for DR, we can provide that to them. All right. So I'm going to play a little video, but before I get to the video, again, our services are co-location, cloud, which we're going to spend some time on talking about this cloud cash promo that's going to help you guys make money and open more doors. So pay attention to that. It's going to be exciting. Dedicated servers. And now we're also getting into fiber. So we also do managed services. And I don't know how many of you are MSPs or just agents. So for the MSPs, we have a great product for security as well as backup. And so what we do with that product is we'll do the heavy lifting for you for like your security and your backup, giving you more time to sell and do other things. If you're an agent, we'll fully manage it for your client, keep you out of that realm of having to do any work. So, and we're going to play a video. How many of you have been to the data center? Okay, a few. We're going to play a quick video to show you our facility. But if you do want to basically come out and see it, just call me and set it up. Take you 15, 20 minutes for a tour, and then we can do lunch. That's a great question, Benny. Thank you. We're located in Deerfield, 500 Green Road, but we also have locations in Miami, Atlanta, and Chicago. But our main facility is in Deerfield.
In any case, I created this slide because I wanted to categorize a little bit about cloud. We hear the word cloud on the sales side and on the technical side today more than ever. And there are multiple different things and multiple different variations of cloud. They fall into three major categories. We have software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. Now, I've put over here some examples of software as a service. One that we all know is going to be, let's say, Google G Suite, or Office 365, or Salesforce, or Dropbox. At the end of the day, these are platforms where the end user directly interacts with it. You're directly going into G Suites or Office 365 to look at your email. Platform as a service is something more that you may or may not be introduced into, and that's going to be something like Splunk, or New Relic, or MongoDB as a service, or SQL as a service. Anybody familiar with these kind of platforms? Perfect. These are basically middleware for your application that your developers interact with. And the third type of major cloud service, and for example, Fusion 360 that we were just talking about right now, that is a platform as a service. Their SIP product is a platform as a service. It's something that you integrate into your infrastructure or into your organization. Infrastructure as a service. So we are an infrastructure as a service provider as one of the products that we offer, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Some of the ones that we know about are Amazon AWS. The other one is the Google Cloud, and another one talking about is Microsoft Azure. Those are the three major carriers today that provide infrastructure as a service. And so do we, but each one of the four that we're going to talk about today has their own little twist, whether that twist is a technical twist, whether it's a price twist, or a limitation. So, as a whole, I'm only going to go over some of these, and during discussions we could talk more in detail about other ones. And if I do get into more details, and I do get more technical, because I do have that ability to call it squirrel, just let me know and ask the question. So, business critical enterprise support. Support. When things hit the fan and your application is down, who do you call? Well, apparently AWS does have enterprise support, and they will help you at the application level, but it starts at $15,000 a month. Azure, Microsoft, they flat out don't tell you what the price is. You have to contact them, and we have not done that. Google Cloud, just like AWS, they start at also $15,000 a month with a minimum of 1 year commit. Now, the upside of that is both with AWS and Google Cloud, if your monthly spent with them is above $150,000, then it's 10%. So it's at a minimum of $15,000 a month. With us, we have personnel here in-house varying from every degree, from dealing with Cisco, routing, switching, VPNs, firewalls, application layer, operating system layer, development layer, all the way down to kernel execution layer, in-house here in Deerfield or in Chicago, but everybody's here in the US. Flexibility and customization, and that's where one of the things that we find is very good about our cloud product is the ability for the client to be extremely flexible with how he sets up his infrastructure in the cloud. When you go to Amazon, the reason why I put rigid to conform is you have to conform to their services. They're going to have their virtual machines, but when you deploy them, they're going to have a small, they're going to have a medium, they're going to have a large, an extra large, a double extra large. And all those basically have a varying degree of whether how many CPU cores, how much memory, how much disk. But if you need a lot of disk but not a lot of CPU because your application requires that scenario, you can be pushed and geared towards a server that is just completely overpowered just because you need that additional space. And you're paying for that. With Microsoft Azure, for example, you have the same scenario, but you also have the limitations of supporting operating systems, for example. You can't right now go to Microsoft Azure and say, hey, I want to host a Sun Microsystem OS. I want to run Sun OS, FreeBSD, Debian, or any one of the other Linux flavors, or Oracle OS, or anything like that. You want Microsoft, you get Microsoft. And I get it, and the Microsoft is a very big, we saw that Microsoft Azure's gross for revenue for last year actually succumbed AWS, which I was surprised at when I saw that. And then the newcomer to the block, as far as these three big guys go, is Google Cloud. Now, with Google Cloud, it's very complex. They utilize a lot of complexity to where they provide to you an infrastructure as a service surrounding more of a platform as a service. You use their database architecture to connect to it. You have to have a lot of developers on the back end to be able to go and deploy an application to that infrastructure. Now, one of the things that we talk about also about redundancy and high availability. We've seen year after year after year different cloud products go down or have problems during different times of the years and everything else. And at the end of the day, cloud is just somebody else's computer or somebody else's problem. But they're built in a way to provide a service, and you pay for that service. Now, one of the things that why I talk about, I'll go with the multi-region expected. Both AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud all expect your application to be region aware, meaning you will have set up, let's say, load balancers at the east side and the west side and their central location. You would have 3-4 web servers across all their regions. You will have databases that replicate all across those. You would have your CDNs and all these different keywords and cloud nomenclature, which makes sense to me, but may not make sense to the enterprise level client that is looking for just, hey, I just need to get these servers out of my office. And these scenarios require a lot of development, a lot of testing, and a lot of additional infrastructure. With our cloud, which we call VN Cloud, it's an on-demand cloud. It is a hyper-converged-based architecture. We hear a lot about technologies today such as VMware or Xen Hypervisor or KVM Hypervisor, which is Red Hat. This is based on KVM as far as a hypervisor from the technical perspective. And utilizing hyper-converged architecture allows us to have high availability at the infrastructure level, meaning that it could sustain an immense amount of infrastructure failure and still have built-in automation to bring it back up in another zone. So pricing models. One of the things that we looked at is, over here is pay as you grow, no hidden fees, no nickel and diming. If you ever looked at AWS's cloud, it's very easy to go there, click, click, click this and that, and as you start putting in more resources and everything, it's, well, you had 1,531 writes to the disk, but you had 4 billion reads. So therefore, we're going to charge you an extra 0.00001 cent per hour for this. So it's this huge scope creep of cost factors where your client's saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to pay for this, and then he puts the system into production, and it just scope creep ups to a huge amount of bills. Same for Azure, same for cloud. And we've tried to make it extremely simple, extremely easy. You set up the resources you want, you set up the cost factor, you set up your amount of resources, you hit submit, you hit deploy, it bills you and you're done. That bill is your monthly bill. Let's say you want to delete a machine in the middle of the month, well, that amount gets credited back to your account and you keep going. And this is more, I guess, on the client side, not necessarily what you guys are be dealing with, more on what the client's going to be dealing with. But the sale here is that it's pay as you grow, no scope creep. You don't have these weird, crazy hidden fees, these invoices that are just astronomical. And on top of that, when was the last time you guys paid to submit somebody to AWS? You told somebody, hey, go to AWS. When was the last time you actually got any payment for that? Now, within our VN Cloud, we do have multiple variations of infrastructure as a service. So we have a public cloud variation. The public cloud variation, you go in through a web interface, you set up multiple machines. You could have one as your Active Directory, one as your SQL, one as your file server, and you set them all up and you get billed accordingly. Now, for the companies that need compliance and regulation, things like HIPAA, PCI compliance, SOC, any of those that their particular business model requires their infrastructure to be 100% dedicated to them for security reasons or whatever other reason it is, we also have the private cloud option where we will actually stand up an entire cluster for them and lease that to them as a service. Third option is a hybrid. We have clients that say, you know what, I want to have dedicated SQL boxes that are crazy powerful. And then we want to be able to stand up and stand down machines on the fly on the public side that interconnect to the private. And we do that as well. And last but not least, we have the interoperability of clouds. And with Cloud Connect, we could interconnect our cloud infrastructure to any of the other ones discussed before through Cloud Connect. It's just like, Fusion was saying a couple minutes ago, that it's basically a cross-connect. Through our MPLS circuit, we bring you into either Google's XConnect or into Amazon's or Microsoft's through one of our MPLS links. And it's through an NNI and everything else. So from here, I'm going to pass it back to Mario, and we'll go more into the typical opportunities and what they're going to look like. So far, any questions, I guess, or should we just save it for later? Okay, very quiet. Here you go.
Thank you. Look, I don't expect any of you guys to go out there and have these discussions with your clients. But I think it was good for you guys to see how capable we are as a company. You can just basically go out there and talk to your client and just mention the word cloud. And they go, I'm interested. And then from there, you could send it over to myself, and we can take it from there and talk to your customer about what they want to do. Because sometimes just mentioning the word cloud, they may not even need that. They could use a dedicated server or a mixed hybrid solution with connecting a couple servers at their office, putting them in the data center, a little bit of the cloud, and maybe a dedicated server. So we can mix that all up. But here's some of the examples of customers. Businesses concerned about downtime. Last year, Irma put businesses out of business, not out of business, but they didn't have power to their building, so they had servers in their office, so they couldn't access their network. Had they been in the cloud, in a data center, or on a dedicated server, that wouldn't have been an issue for them. Business concerned about security and compliance. That's another big one. Excuse me. So businesses with multiple locations. Again, you could have a centralized server in our data center or a cloud solution that they can access from anywhere. If they had VPN, they can basically VPN in from anywhere they are. So that's a great solution. Businesses look to lower their tax liability versus owning equipment, the hardware. By leasing or renting the dedicated server or the cloud, it's a write-off as well. So you can take it to that example. And one thing that's not on there, or I did talk about security and compliance, HIPAA. I don't know if you guys know all the rules around HIPAA and Sarbanes-Oxley. Companies, even if they're in retail, forget about the medical and the banking. We all know that they need to be in a data center or have their information off-site. Even businesses that are in retail that do transactions of $1 million a year are required to have security. Otherwise, they can be fined hundreds of thousands of dollars if that data is breached, meaning someone took all their credit card information from the restaurant customers. So, it's another example. Development, staging, and production environments. This is great. I don't want to get too far into that, but think of it this way. You go out to a customer and you sell them your voice services, but you don't really talk to them about their dedicated server, their cloud, or their servers. So what I'm asking or letting you guys know that you can do is just kind of bring up the subject. What are you doing about security? What are you doing about your backups? What are you doing about the cloud? What is your interest in it? And I don't expect any of you guys to get in a deep conversation with them. All I'm saying is, hey, if you can open that door and let us get in there, because I'll tell you this, 9 out of 10 of appointments that I have, the CTO or the COO walks out of there saying, damn, I got to rethink everything I'm doing. And that's because we've been in business 20 years, and we have these relationships with our clients that allows us to take them to the next level because we can customize anything that they want to do. And that's the biggest difference. You go on AWS, Google, or Azure, it's just production. When I say like a production line, that's all they're looking for. Whereas we'll kind of peel back that onion with the client and help them build an infrastructure that they didn't think was possible. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
So you have capital expenditures and operating expenses. So let's say you go and you have servers in your office. You spent $50,000 to buy those servers. You have capital expense liability on that. That $50,000 that you spent to go and purchase those servers, that's income. So you have to pay income tax on that $50,000 as far as corporate tax. Now, yes, you could depreciate it, but you have to depreciate it in 7 years and this and that and whatever else. With an operating expense, it's an expense. It's 100% tax deductible right there and then. Make sense? It's an easy sell on that portion.
All right. So we're going to get into what we're rolling out today called Cloud Cache. And we're excited about this. It's probably going to be the easiest way for you guys to make money. So without having to track it yourselves. So what we did is we set up a link for you guys to go to at volico.com/cloud-promo, and you'll register. You'll put in your name, your last name, your business, and your phone number. Within 24 hours, we'll send out a welcome package, which will include an email letter. Sorry. It will include an email letter. It'll include a video on how to set up your cloud. And it will also have detailed information about our company. But the greatest thing is you're going to get a code specific to you. It's going to be a link that you can send out to all your customers, and they can sign up for our cloud servers. But get this, they get $300 Cloud Cache, and you can send it to as many people as you want to go and try our cloud platform, set it up, go on there and build their own cloud platform and try it out for, could be up to 3 months, depending on how many resources they use. They can set up licenses, everything that they want to do, and try it for free. No strings attached. And the great thing is you guys can send it out to whoever you want, as many as you want. As soon as your customer logs in and sets up their cloud, we're now tracking it. Once they deplete their $300 and they start billing, you start getting paid. You don't have to do anything. We'll send the reports directly to TCG, and you'll see basically how much you're making or how much, more you could make. So, feel free to call us too about those reports. And again, it's real simple. You register at Volico, you share that referral code, and you sit back and collect. Really, if people are starting using this, is a great way to get people that are thinking about the cloud or not sure to go try it for free. It doesn't cost them anything. And another thing is, it is automated. But let's say your customer does need support. They need to talk, to myself or Gotti or any of our engineers. We can do that as well and help them set up and walk through it. So just to reiterate, it's $300 of cloud cash for every client. No limits. You can send it out to as many people as you want. Just remember to use your referral code that we send you guys. Great way, again, to get clients trying the cloud. If they've never tried it, have thought about it, or are thinking of making a move, this is a perfect opportunity. We automatically, like I said, we track the sales with TCG, and your coupon, your specific coupon, we'll send out a welcome package with an email template. So you don't even have to do anything but put your customer's email and forward that email to them, and it's going to have a nice explanation of what we're doing. And it's an easy account setup. So we even attach a video that, it's coming up, but I don't think we're going to play it because it might not work like the last one. But what are the channel partner benefits? Well, I don't want you guys to have to go out there and try to sell our services. I want you to open the door for me and our team to allow us to do that. If you're already in there selling other services such as voice, it's an easy discussion to open that door, whether it be security, backup, cloud services. Again, back to that cloud. We have sales engineer and support. We do a competitive quarterly bonus. Who knew? Right now, we're doing 3X on co-location. So if you sell a colo deal, you get paid 3X on it. Partner training and battle card. We'll be coming out with a battle card. The battle card, are you guys familiar with battle cards? Basically talks about the company and then has specific questions to open those doors. We're going to have that on all our products so that you guys can ask a few questions regarding cloud, dedicated servers, co-location, security, backup. MSP Lunch and Learns. I just had lunch last week with Jack and his agent. I had lunch with Dan. Basically, if you guys want to go to lunch with your client, let me take them to lunch with you. If you're trying to get a customer out and you want to start talking about this, set up a lunch. But we can also do lunch and learns. We bring in MSPs, you guys. You can come in and bring your engineers, and we start talking for a few hours, have lunch, and they get to know our products more. So, any questions? You guys are hungry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You had said your main data center is local. Deerfield, right?
Did you?
Under normal service, do things get replicated to one of your other data centers?
So we have 20,000 square feet at our main facility in Deerfield. That facility is a Category 5 rated building. It is a Tier 4 data center. You guys familiar with the N+1 nomenclature as far as redundancy? Okay. In Deerfield, we're built as a 2N plus X, so we're at a minimum of 2N of everything. So there is 2 of every single infrastructure aspect. Now, to specifically ask your question, okay. To specifically answer your question, yes, we do have replication capabilities. That is, this cloud is built as a hyper-converged architecture locally at the Deerfield facility. And if there are hypervisors that fail inside Deerfield, the infrastructure automatically puts them up and brings up the virtual machines on another hypervisor nearby. Other than that, we do also have options for clients if they need additional high availability to be able to migrate them also to our facility in Miami as well. And that has to do with low latency because, or out of state like Chicago, or actually we'll go to Atlanta. Chicago is where we do disaster. Cost factors are different. So disaster recovery that we push to Chicago is more of our government. And a lot of the small business clients and enterprise clients that we push to Atlanta. But yes, the answer is yes, in short.
In line with that, are all your to Michael's iPhone.
Then the sands, then the boxes, that's obvious, that's what you've already said. But are the sands themselves duplicated?
Good question. So the reason why I put Hyper Converge was exactly for that question. So we use a system that utilizes what's called network block devices. Every particular hard drive, are you familiar with Ceph? Ceph, like a cephalopod, like a octopus? Okay, so Ceph is a file storage system that was built by NASA, for example, and CERN. Are you familiar with CERN, the big Hadron Collider? So these are storage systems that need to be able to instantaneously have 1 billion IOPS, let's say. They need to be able to write, a petabyte of data in a second. That brings that infrastructure and the storage away from traditional DAS, like direct attached storage or NAS or anything like that. Basically, every machine has multiple hard drives. Those hard drives work as what's called network block devices, or OSDs, depending on object storage devices. And basically, the data is written to at least 3 objects at any given time. Those objects, there's rule sets, which is called a crush map. Those rules stipulate that I do not want you to write the same exact block to another hard drive residing in the same chassis. I don't want it to be in the same rack. I don't want it to be in the same power. And we could further stipulate and have additional resources to say, hey, I want this block also replicated using COW, copy on write, to where it copies it to another facility live for live replication.
Another question, you guys also have availability of SPLA licensing via Microsoft?
Yes, we are SPLOS. So when you go into this, so in this video, you can actually see how to create a virtual machine. Over here, the guy who did it is a little frugal, so he went with Linux. But you could choose from the drop-down menu, let's say a Microsoft Windows server, and the licensing and everything will be right there and then.
Last question. Do you guys also provide a virtual firewall if you want to create an environment, or do we have to also purchase the firewall part of our service stack?
Good question. You have a couple different options there. At the most basic level, firewalls are already included with every virtual machine. Every virtual machine, you'll be able to go to the firewall section, and you'll be able to go and create rules. I want this TCP or this UDP connection from anywhere to this port. I want this one only from here. I want this one only from there. But we could take it a step further. We have clients that go into our hybrid solution where we actually go and work with them to set up either a Fortinet or a Sonic wall or whatever firewall that they're comfortable with, and cross-connect that physical firewall, if they want it physical, we could do physical as well, into their application. We have clients that go and import an OVA. So you could go and get, let's say, a Fortinet OVA that runs on VMware, and you could implement that as a virtual machine. So you have a lot of options. The flexibility here is very big. Like I said before, with AWS and the others, you have a small machine, you have a medium machine, a large machine, and that's kind of it. And you're stuck with that. Here, when you create the virtual machine, you literally select, I want this many CPUs, I want this much hard drives or this little hard drives, and then I want this much memory or this much memory. So you could go into any plane as much as you want. Oh, and I want an external IP and I want an internal IP. And it'll create the interfaces, join them to the bridges and everything else. So.
Any other questions? So I guess the one question for a lot of people that aren't very technically versed, I mean, how do you even open up the conversation? Do you want to give these guys some words of wisdom on how they open that conversation about approaching the cloud? Like, there's some magic bullets for someone to say.
So these are kind of very easy starting points for clients, and I know that Mario went and looked over this. Business concern about downtime. Like he said, we had Irma right now. People were down for days, if not longer. When I spoke to our FPL rep, and she told me that they're expecting a 97% outage across Florida. I laughed. I said, ha, 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 whatever. And this is after the fact that it was already going to Naples. This is after it already passed us here and everything else, and they knew it was not coming to South Florida. She still knew that FPL was getting hit 97%, and they did. Now, they did bring up, 90+% of the state back in about a week, which was a crazy endeavor for them, but it did happen. There are things that were uncontrollable. You know, we went out of power for 62 and a half hours. That doesn't mean that we lost power to the data center, to infrastructure, but we lost utility power for 62 and a half hours. I was there. Basically, around 3:30 in the morning, we all got alerts to our phones saying, hey, tornado warning. About 15 minutes after that, the outside noise in this building, and this is a minimum of 8 inches of steel and concrete, reinforced, the whole 9 yards, including ceiling and everything. The outside level went from like a 2 to an 8 for about 30 seconds. About 3 to 4 minutes after, and for 30 seconds, then it came back down to a level of a 2. So it was probably a small little F1 tornado. 3 to 4 minutes after that is when we lost power. Generators kicked in less than 5 seconds. And we were on generator for 62 and a half hours. Literally 15 minutes after FPL came back already, we got our first contracted refueling to bring fuel in. We have 3 refueling contracts, one that's 3 miles away from us, one that's 50 miles north, and one that's 50 miles south. Now, where am I getting with that? The damage that we had was a utility pole that was literally snapped in half at the top because a tree flew into it or whatever it is. And it took FPL 62 and a half hours to repair it. And we are at a critical grid. We're right by North Broward Medical Center, which is a trauma center. And that's us. But if you have an office in Cooper City, let's say, where there's very little things going on there, you may not be a priority. And your business may not be a priority for FPL or AT&T to get their fiber back up and running or their power. You could be out for a lot longer. How long, from a risk factor, can your clients sustain their business being offline? So that's a big thing. Business concern about security and compliance. We talked about firewalls. We utilize Fortinet, Sonic walls, and there's a lot more into that with endpoint protection, DDoS mitigation, intrusion prevention, and I could go on the technical side. But people that are concerned that their data is important to them, and in HIPAA compliance, world, if it's 3 patients or let's say 10 patients, data gets stolen or whatever it is, they could be out of business.
Connected to Michael's iPhone.
Multiple locations. That actually has a double-edged sword. So on one side of multiple locations is for clients that have small businesses. They've got a bunch of offices, but it's a bunch of people that work out of their house. With this scenario and this cloud architecture, they could have their Active Directory, their file storage, everything in one location. They VPN through a Fortinet or whatever other firewall, and it's as if they're right there and then next to each other in the same room. On the big side of that is we have business applications and clients that do have a lot of infrastructure where they've got 200, 300, 400 servers crunching different things, whether they're web servers, application servers, SQL servers, Mongo, whatever they are, and they could be acting together as one. So from a redundancy perspective, if one data center fails, they still have their entire infrastructure running on the other side. And we deal with that where we actually manage their clusters, we manage their load balancers, we manage all of that from a managed service perspective. That's going to be a harder door to open because it requires a lot of technical aspects to approach that CTO. Business looking to decouple hardware dependency. In short, I talked about before about the CapEx, OpEx. Well, somebody goes and say, hey, we need a hardware refresh. We spent, we've already depreciated this, and this hardware is basically useless to us now, and we need to spend $100,000 on new hardware. Well, how about you leave that part out and just concentrate on your business and actually just work on what you need to do and just lease the servers, lease the infrastructure. And that's a business decision, financial decision that you would work with, their CFO and such. So we have, under our managed service platform, we also provide VDIs. So at that point, the only thing that transfers between their face and to their desktop, because now their desktop is not in front of them either, at that point, they do still have the 1 gig, 10 gig to the server because their desktop is actually sitting virtually at the data center level. And that's another thing is, hurricane happens, they go somewhere else, they could use a tablet, their phone, their laptop, whatever it is, and they get back directly to their desktop.